What's up, peeps? So the biggest World Cup in history starts soon. 48 teams, 3 host nations, 104 games, and 1 trophy that only 8 teams have ever won in 95 years of trying. So everyone's got a prediction. Most of them are wrong. So before a single ball is kicked, let's get into the facts, the favourites, the underdogs, the stars and teams that could shine, and obviously England's actual chances at this World Cup. So I'll be covering some key games at this World Cup with post-match analysis. So if you don't want to miss that, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Times may vary because I'm in the UK, but keep a lookout. So what makes this World Cup genuinely different? So this World Cup has the most teams in history to ever compete. So 48 teams, which will play across around 16 cities, 11 in the US, 3 in Mexico, and then 2 in Canada. So in total, 104 games, up from around 64 in Qatar. So in total, this might be the highest attendance in games we've ever seen, definitely, I would say. So under the new format, the top 2 teams of each group, plus then the 8 best third place teams, will go into kind of like a knockout round of about 32. Then we'll run that round and then it will go down to 16, quarters, semis, and then obviously the final. So let's run some footballing numbers. So some people's favourite striker, I definitely think he's a top striker. Erling Haaland, who was the top scorer in World Cup qualifying across all confederations. So 16 goals in only 8 qualifying matches, which is twice as many as any other player in Europe, and he's not even played at a World Cup, so that will change soon. So this tournament also features 22 teenagers, which is the most in World Cup history. So for any American fans, there's a name to look out for Mexico, Gilberto Mora, who's 17 years old. He'll be the youngest ever player to appear at a host nation World Cup. And just some insight into the actual World Cup. So the actual World Cup was stolen in 1966 before the tournament, which was in England, ironically, and then was found a week later by a dog named Pickles, who discovered it in some newspaper under a hedge in London, of all places. Now this World Cup is the first World Cup to be hosted by 3 nations simultaneously. So teams will travel thousands of miles between group stages. So the kind of physical demand on squads will be unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of World Cups in general. So the winning nation will also take home the largest prize, obviously, being 1.7 billion. So the first time in 28 years, Norway are actually back at the World Cup. Now, you might remember a striker by the name of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Now they have Erling Haaland. So the symmetry is extraordinary. So the favourites of this World Cup are twofold. So Spain are outright favourites, being the European champions. And then it's France, and then England, Brazil, Argentina, in that order. We'll break down why each will be kind of a genuine contender, and we'll start with Spain. So Spain have a system now that is built for winning. So Spain have a system that's built for winning. So 3 of the last 4 World Cup winners went into the tournament as kind of continental champions or kind of beaten finalists from the preceding competition. So Spain fit that profile exactly as reigning European champions, and then obviously France before that, and Argentina and things like that. So for the case of Spain, it's simple, and has been for the last few years. They're the best team in the world at doing what consistently wins: tournaments and just games in general. So keeping the ball, pressing in coordinated lines, kind of suffocating opposition through structure rather than kind of individual brilliance. They do have the individual brilliance when they need it, but players like Yamal, Pedri, Fermin Lopez, kind of, that's a system so embedded that the players almost serve that structure. Spain don't need to be spectacular. They just need to be themselves. They have great coaches, and along with it, some world-class talent as well. And obviously, they've produced major trophies in the past. The last one being 2 years ago at the Euros. Now, the concern is that historically, favourites often underperform at World Cups. So Spain have only won the trophy once in the last 6 competitions, despite kind of regularly going in as favourites. So pressure at the World Cup is different to pressure, at the Euros or in qualifiers or in the Nations League, and so do their opponents. So the next team to cover is France. They've got a very dangerous team and depth. Their attacking depth is almost unfair. Mbappe, Dembele, Elise, Barcola, Doué, and Cherki. So I don't know, the problem for every defensive coach is going to be how to handle that front line. So France often don't need to play beautifully just to get results, although they can do that. They just need to be clinical, to be honest. And historically they are, the last few World Cups that I've been alive in, they've played extremely well, obviously. But the concern is always the same. A dressing room full of kind of egos, can they coexist rather than connect? And that kind of fractures the tournament like potential. And it can collapse it in essence. We have seen it before in numerous kind of World Cups, qualifiers, but they do have younger, hungrier players as well now. So, but the question mark will never fully disappear. So the next team is England, the squad that just can't get it over the line. The closest we got was against Italy in that Euros. So there's a full section on England later, but in terms of kind of favourites, they are the bookies' third best team to kind of favourite to win the tournament. Now this is the team that really sparks a lot of love, Brazil. So Brazil, they're the big team that everyone wants to win. So they've got Vinicius, Rafinha, Endrick, Cunha, and that front can destroy a lot of defenses. So Brazil haven't won since 2002. That's the first World Cup I actively was kind of watching in school, but the kind of motivation for this squad is real. Neymar coming back in, and the motivation to kind of bring it back to Brazil, the footballing kind of pinnacle of football. So if they can solve that, then hopefully we can see something from this Brazil team. And then Argentina, the defending champions, they've got Messi, but Messi at this World Cup kind of carries a different kind of weight. It's his last World Cup, more than likely. I don't see another World Cup in him, but we're not complaining if he does. Argentina have experience. Again, they're a team that can win ugly if they need to. The squad depth is there, and they have a manager in Scaloni who knows exactly how to kind of organise the team for tournament football, so I'll never write them off. And then another team that everyone wants to see climb, Portugal. So obviously Ronaldo's last World Cup, they're now kind of within touching distance of Brazil and Argentina in terms of kind of favourites. This is Ronaldo's 6th World Cup. Bruno Fernandes, who's in the form of his life, with 29 international goals and counting. So, and he's in a great run of form at the end of the United season, and obviously in the pre-game friendlies, the game friendlies. And he's been in superb form in the friendlies. So their only concern was their friendly against Chile. So Rafael Leao got red carded before the tournament, which wasn't really necessary. You're there to get your minutes in, to get your fitness up. But we're going to see against DR Congo on June 17th, to see how well they're fit for the World Cup. when we talk about underdogs, we're talking about some serious teams that people have overlooked. One I mentioned earlier was Norway. They're kind of the dark horse. Norway, obviously, back at the World Cup after so long. They dominated their qualifying group, and that also included Italy, and then obviously went undefeated throughout the entire process. And then there's Haaland as well. So Norway face Iraq, Senegal and France in Group I, and they need to finish second. So beating Senegal and taking something from France is, I believe that they can do it, and get into the knockout stages. So nobody will want to play Norway in this form. A fully motivated Haaland at the World Cup, in his first World Cup, with a point to prove on the biggest stage. So we might see a frightening prospect. Another team worth mentioning is Ecuador, who are a defensive unit. They've only conceded 5 goals through qualifying, and no one has beaten them since the start of 2025. So they fly very under the radar in terms of footballing talent. And then Morocco. Morocco, the semi-finalists at the Qatar World Cup, which wasn't a fluke. We all watched the games. We all saw their quality in everything they did, and also in the AFCON final, the controversial AFCON final. So, but the harder challenge is doing it again. It's always doing it again. Nobody, wants to just win it once. They want to keep winning it. So if there's a team that can try and get back in there, it's Morocco. They have the talent. And they're almost like hunters in this. Now Japan have a lot of tactical discipline, some elite club players, and some tournament pedigree. They knocked out Germany, Spain at the Qatar World Cup, which wasn't a fluke. Japan are fast, organized, tactically sophisticated, lack a little bit of kind of physicality, but they're exactly teams that eliminate people like Brazil or in England in the last 16 and then leave the world stunned. So don't underestimate Japan. So the next team is Senegal, the AFCON champions, the controversial AFCON champions. So they beat England 3-1 in a friendly recently, with Sadio Mane leading the front line. He's 34 though in this World Cup, with Nicholas Jackson and Ismaila Sarr, and then teenage PSG forward Ibrahim Mbaye, who we'll cover in another video. They've got quality and tournament experience, and then a manager who's already shown kind of he can organise Africa's best side to threaten European opposition. So they'll be ones to look out for as well. So past Mbappe, Messi, Haaland, Ronaldo and the stars, there's stars in this tournament that might shine much brighter. So one of them being Lamine Yamal, obviously. Probably the most talked about teenager since Ronaldo and Messi. He's only 18. He's got kind of no attacking weakness besides aerial ability, because we don't often see him score headers. But he's already the most complete winger on the planet, in terms of, he's right up there basically. But that'll be in another video as well, with his percentile data and breakdowns of a few other players and other stars to watch out for as well. Now the one all England fans will love to hear, Kobbie Mainoo. So Manchester United's Kobbie Mainoo, who's only 21, who's going to be featured on this channel quite a bit. He was written off under Amorim and then revitalised under Carrick. He forced his way back into this England squad, one of the most composed, intelligent kind of presences in Carrick's midfield. I think he's going to be there for a very long time. What Mainoo gives to our midfield is that consistency, ability to receive under pressure, stay composed, all at 21, and he's just improving. And if you give him the chance, he will just shine there in that pocket with Declan Rice or Elliot Anderson. I think his best form is just in the future. We're yet to see it.